Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss at Internet Shitlord. And before I begin my video, oh, look at this, Meatball's already on board. Hello. Hello, Meatball. What's that? Do you have something to say? Yeah, okay. So, now that if Meatball will allow me, I wanted to mention that this Sunday we have inappropriate characters. And it's going to be a very special episode because it's going to have the three current inappropriate characters. That's me, Ryan David, and Venture Satanis. And also one of the alumni of inappropriate characters, Grim Jim. Hell, if Job shows up in the chat, we'll probably just send him the link and then it'll be the entire reunion or something, like the whole cast reunion. Though I'm not sure if all three of the number 3 men show up at the same spot, will that cause some kind of an explosion or something? I don't know. But you'll have to stay tuned to find out. So make sure you don't miss it on Sunday, 7:30 Central PM, obviously. Check out Inappropriate Characters. And as for everything else, if you like this channel, then, if this is the first time watching this channel and you decide you do like it, then be sure to subscribe and hit the like button and share everywhere that you think people will be interested in it or pissed off by it. Keep track of, hit the notification bell, because I've been posting a lot of posts, like community posts in my channel. And some of them include previews about upcoming products, and some of them just include a lot of Meatball material. So you don't want to miss Meatball. Don't piss off Meatball now, okay? All right. So today I am talking about a question and answer from one of my viewers, who was saying, well, I really like the deal of Sword Caravan. I've read it, I enjoyed it and stuff, but I want some ideas about how to run it. Okay. So today this is going to be, I guess you could say it's a bit promotional in a way, but this is me explaining. I'm going to tell you guys about what you can do with Sword Caravan. I'm going to tell you what I've done in my campaign. Okay. Because I'm running a Jesus Christ. Can you watch that tail, please, Meatball? She just knocked it over with her tail. So I've been running a campaign of Sword Caravan for quite some time now. I think it's got to be over a year, I think, or getting very close, if not. Sword Caravan has a large amount of information. This here's the hardcover version of it, and it's detailing everything in the area of the Levant and the Silk Road, and from the period of 1190 or so till 1220 something, till the Mongol invasions. So, what do you do with that? How do you set it up? So, as you'll see, I'm not going to do a review. This isn't a review of Sword Caravan. I already did that, right? So, or rather, a flip through of Sword Caravan. But you can see that the book gives you your basic instruction on some of the different groups that are found on the Silk Road. It gives you a gazetteer, and then in the gazetteer there are maps and sections on specific cities. There's also a timeline of events that occur in the history of the Silk Road. And you also have a big section on traveling around the Silk Road, with specific tables that are meant to be used on a regular basis as your characters are traveling along the Silk Road or getting to certain places in the Silk Road. So there's lots and lots of tables to rely on. So this should be hinting to you. And if that's not enough, you have in the back, you have additional material for generating different random stuff, right? So random aristocrats, for example. So all of this should give you the hint that this is set up to run as a kind of a sandbox game. And then, in the later stuff, social encounters and Wilderlands adds to that. I still haven't gotten my copy. I've got to send a message to my publisher. They sent it in the wrong not to the wrong address, but they sent it the wrong way, the way that it's almost guaranteed to disappear, because unfortunately Uruguayan mail is horrible, absolutely horrific. They just steal everything. Like there's no controls whatsoever. Anyway, so I'm getting Wilderlands soon enough. So there are several different types of campaigns that you can run in Sword Caravan. And the first thing to understand is that it's got basically two sections to it. Not in a literal sense, because it's all the one setting, it's all happening at the same time, but in a sense that there's two very different emphases that you could use, that you could do one or the other, or do them both, right? And so the one is the Crusade, right? This is happening during the Third Crusade. That's Richard the Lionheart, when he goes to the Holy Land and faces off against Saladin, right? The greatest warrior of Christendom against the greatest defender of the Islamic faith, right? So this is obviously a very good introduction into the Silk Road. But of course, you could also play an entire campaign that's set only in the area of the Levant, only in the Holy Land, as it was called, and play through, like your characters arrive in the Third Crusade, and then, the timeline talks about what goes on in the Fourth Crusade, the German Crusade, the Fifth Crusade, and it ends just shortly before the Sixth Crusade. So you could have an entire campaign where the characters are always sticking in the area there of the Mediterranean, so that they're in the different cities and territories of the Holy Land, or traveling potentially into like Saladin's Ayyubid territories, like Damascus, or into Egypt, but that they're never going to go off to the Silk Road. You could totally do that, and there the characters would obviously start out as Crusaders, but Crusaders can then after their first crusade is done, have a lot of different options. They may end up becoming knights for one of the local princes or lords. They might end up becoming mercenaries. They might end up becoming traders, and working the trade in the region, or adventurers of other kinds. They might be working for the church, or they might be working as spies, right? Who knows? It depends on the buildup of the creation of your party, right? What your party is made out of. So there's a lot of options open for that. The other half of a Sword and Caravan campaign is traveling throughout the Silk Road, going to the different lands of the Silk Road. But there's also a lot of different ways to do that. So the basic default, which is actually to me kind of the default campaign, and it's kind of what I've done in my campaign of Sword and Caravan, is that you start out traveling from Europe, so that way your characters start out as European crusaders, travel to the Third Crusade along with Richard the Lionheart or Philip Augustus or Frederick Barbarossa, whichever one, and you end up in the Holy Land, and then and you play through the whole events of the Third Crusade. And when that's done, see that the Third Crusade ends with Saladin opening up the trade routes so that characters can travel now. If you're Christian Crusader characters, you can travel through Saladin's territory and then beyond into the Silk Road. And so the basic default, of the Silk Road section of the campaign is what you might call a picaresque, which is the characters are kind of weirdos and outcasts in the context of this very exotic place that they're in, that is not theirs. It's not their place, right? And they're traveling through it, looking at wonders and discovering things, and often getting into trouble, and that's like the basic. It's your basic sandbox campaign where your characters don't have a central home base. But it doesn't have to be just like that, because there is, extensive parts of the timeline deal with stuff going on the other side of the Zagros Mountains, on the side of the Silk Road itself. And you have all of these different groups, power groups, right? You have the Zengid Turks, you have the Khwarezmians, you have the Gurids, the Liao, the Jia, the Mongols. And they're all vying to try in a period that's very unstable in the Silk Road, which is at this time, trying to vie for who's going to be the superpower of the Silk Road. And your characters obviously could get very much involved in that sort of stuff. The events will be going on around them. If you're keeping track of the time as they're moving through the Silk Road, then the timeline advances and certain events come into play, which will affect your player characters. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen in that kind of campaign. I'm going to give an example now about like how I've been running my campaign. So the campaign started with the player characters being like, the very first session was actually in France. The characters were participating on the side of Richard III's army in his final battle against his dad, Henry II. And, that's where Richard basically gets the right to be the heir, the crown, right? And then his dad dies right after that battle, and then Richard is crowned. He swears to go on crusade. So in the next session, you had the characters mucking around in England after Richard is crowned. One of the very few moments that Richard is ever in England, because he was king of England for 10 years, and he was only there for like a collective total of 6 months out of his entire life. So they're there preparing for the crusade, right? And then after that, they actually go on the crusade. But if you've got Sword and Caravan, you look at the timeline, you know that Richard doesn't get to the Holy Land straight from England, right? He has two major detours. One where by a series of unfortunate accidents he ends up having to conquer Sicily, and another one where by a series of unfortunate accidents he has to end up conquering Cyprus. And so the player characters were going through all that, and it was really funny because at one point there was like, well, hang on, we've been playing for like months now, and we're still not even at the Holy Land, But eventually they do get to the Holy Land, and then Richard bursts in with all his Brian Blessed energy and starts taking over the crusade from the other guys who had not been doing very well, and he immediately starts having this string of victories, and so then the campaign shifts into this detailed military campaign of the different battles and the different conflicts that they're undertaking in the crusade. So at the Siege of Acre, the Battle of Arsuf, etc. Jaffa, and then eventually the crusade's over. They didn't reach Jerusalem. They could see it from afar, but they never quite got there. And but instead, they had to quit because at this point, all of the Crusader kings hated each other. They were all trying to get back to Europe as quickly as possible to go to war with each other, and basically all of their efforts, all their energy had been spent. So they'd actually accomplished quite a few things, but they never got Jerusalem back. But the thing they did make, or rather that Richard did, was to make a peace treaty with Saladin, and that's in that treaty. It meant Christians could now travel through Saladin's lands to go on pilgrimage to Jerusalem or to go to Damascus to trade or whatever, right? So suddenly the second part of the campaign takes over. And what I decided to do is I didn't want it to be a purely picaresque campaign where the characters are just wandering off, earning their fortunes however they may. So instead, I wanted them to have a kind of a focus point. And what I did is there was an NPC that had appeared quite some time earlier in one of the sessions where they were in, I think it was in Acre, and his name was Ascalon, and he was this monk who had originally been, well, he was originally from Lombardy, but then he ended up at a young age coming to the Holy Land, and he was a monk in Jerusalem until the Battle of Hattin, and then he got kicked out along with everybody else, and now he was there with the Crusaders, and he was like this learned guy that quite impressed Richard III. And the player characters some of them had quite impressed Richard III also, but none of them were of like the kind of class that they were going to be able to like go back and get manors in France or something. So instead, Ascalon has this quest that he has been put upon, that is to travel as far to the east as he can along the Silk Road and make contact with the Christian communities in every area he goes to, so as to bring them back into communication and contact and hopefully communion with the Catholic Church. And Richard tells the player characters when he's heading back to Europe that there's really nothing for them there. And so instead he advises them, he gives them the chance to take up this holy quest that the monk has. So they're now traveling all along the Silk Road, and they're there to basically kind of protect and assist this monk Ascalon, though really they're often the ones getting everybody into trouble, and so it's an adventure that is very much a travel adventure where they've been going. They traveled all through Saladin's territory along Damascus. They went to Aleppo. They went to then they went up the mountains and ended up in Tikrit, and now they are at the Caliphate of Baghdad. They're the home of the Caliph, the supreme ruler of Islam. But also Baghdad was one of the biggest cities around at this time. It had 400,000 inhabitants and has the House of Wisdom, the great library. And so they've been staying there for longer. They've had the longest stay since they started moving, since Richard sent them on their way here in Baghdad, where they are. But now they have to leave because they've gotten themselves into too much. They've become too notorious, right? They've actually become kind of famous along the Silk Road for some of the things they've accomplished, at least locally famous in the area, especially the area around the Tigris River. But so that's what I do with my Sword and Caravan campaign. You shouldn't be intimidated by the fact that it's historical. It's an adventuring world like every other setting is. And you could do other kinds of adventures too. Obviously, the character classes in the game, in the book, allow you to play characters that are native to the region. You could do stuff that has more to do. And I expect that it'll probably happen. So far, they have had some encounters with the high nobility, but I'm expecting that as they move further east, as they go into the areas of the Turks, there's a very good chance that they're going to be caught up in the internal conflicts of the collapsing Zengid Turks, right? And so, if that happens, they might end up sticking around in one place and becoming advisors to the Shah or what have you, right? That could happen. So it's what I like to do is set it up in that kind of open environment where the player characters can decide what they do and where they go. And a lot of the tables that you find in Sword and Caravan are set up to allow the DM to do that by having quick generators that he can then input into the world from the PCs going somewhere that he didn't expect them to, right? And so you don't have any pre-made characters or pre-made plot hooks, but you can generate them using the material in Sword and Caravan. Anyways, that's what I do with it. I'm forgetting the name of the person who asked me the question originally, but I figured I might as well do this. Today I was mostly just trying to advertise the fact that we've got inappropriate characters coming up on Sunday, but I hope that those of you who've listened to this have found it instructive about how to run Sword and Caravan. And it's I think it's funny because I think there's people that would they wouldn't worry at all about running Al-Qadim, but because it's Sword and Caravan is set on real Earth, then that means that they suddenly think that there's nothing to do or something. But check it out. Check out Sword and Caravan and Social Encounters and Wilderlands, which I hope to get at some point. And of course, Lion and Dragon, the one that started it all. This is the system. This is a setting. This is a supplement, right? But you can use Sword and Caravan with other OSR systems as well. You don't have to have Lion and Dragon, but why wouldn't you? It's the best system. All right. I guess that's everything for me today. So I've already said, share the video, hit like, etc., subscribe, and check out, if these three aren't to your liking, check out all my other products. Look up my RPG Pundit Presents. All the links are in the description of this video. If you just hit the little more thing, it'll expand and show you all the links. If you're not into historical authentic, how about modern day occultism like Invisible College, or space opera like in Star Adventurer, or Gonzo gaming in World of the Last Sun and the Gonzo Fantasy Companion. The RPG Pundit Presents series has 108 different short supplements that you can pick up. So there's lots and lots of ways, and there's more coming, by which you can support me and my works and Meatball here. Yeah, you too, Meatball. And yet get something for yourself, something that you can enjoy for yourself. So be sure to check all that out. Currently smoking Peterson Oversized Poker. Not currently smoking. Actually, I haven't even started smoking it yet, but I'm looking forward to it with Argento Roots. Thank you very much.